Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. I met my ex boyfriend Jamie back in college. Now, Jamie had always been kind of lazy, careless kind of guy. Being a college student, that was what made me attracted to him. Coming from a strict conservative family where I was always held back from doing things, coming to college enabled me to live my wildest of dreams, and meeting Jamie helped me to not fear trying anything new because this guy wasn't really scared of trying anything new. So he kind of sucked me into his world. We did a lot of crazy things at that time, and after knowing each other for about a couple of months, we knew our relationship wasn't just related to friendship. And at that point, I had fallen hard and fast for Jamie's rebellious, careless personality because he knew how to manage both his studies as well as fun life. So we started dating, and honestly, I'm not sure what I expected, but he took this relationship as casually as one can imagine a guy like Jamie would take. Not saying he was a bad boyfriend, but he was just too busy living the college life to pay attention to our relationship on a serious note. Well, I still continued to date him because, as I mentioned earlier, I really liked how he was as a person, but I knew one day or the other the end of this would come, and it surely did, towards the end of the third year. I still vividly remember that day. It was a warm, sunny day. We all had just graduated and was celebrating at a local Italian restaurant. Everyone was done eating, so we were just chilling at the lounge, and the topic of marriage came up. All the couples began talking about their plans of marriage, while all the single people sulked over not having partners yet. It was a funny discussion until a friend of mine asked Jamie about our plans. I felt a pit of anxiety in my stomach as soon as the question popped because it felt like someone had stolen the words out of my mouth by the way they had framed it. Jamie didn't seem fazed by this question at all. It was like he had seen it coming. And I wasn't surprised at his reaction either, because that was just the same old Jamie. So we all sat there quietly, waiting for his response as he lit up a cigarette and took a puff before telling everyone that we will be thinking about it. I thought I was in heaven that day because the fact that he even said he'd consider things meant a lot to me, but boy, was that a lie. So college ended and we all started to do our own thing. I decided to pursue my master's while working. Jamie decided to start working, and everything seems to be all right. We were in the same city. We still met until one day Jamie invited me over to his house. I thought this was yet again just another meetup. Well, it wasn't, and my life was about to turn upside down. As soon as I walked in, I saw a girl who was fixing things around the house. She looked like she was very comfortable and like she had known Jamie for a while. In fact, she was the one who offered to make me a coffee as she informed Jamie was in the shower. Her assertiveness kind of immediately made me awkward, as if she was trying to show that she knew things around the house, but I let it be because initially I had just assumed this was Jamie's sister, who he would talk about often and who was his age. Well, she wasn't. As soon as Jamie returned, we all sat down and Jamie introduced me to this girl as Lydia. Lydia was Jamie's fiancée, and apparently they were introduced to each other by their parents at the church. I was dumbfounded upon hearing this because Jamie, arranged marriage, church, nothing made sense. The guy who would be high almost every single day of his life suddenly made a 360-degree switch on me? And why was he even telling me all this? Were some of the few questions that popped up on my mind as I very awkwardly congratulated the two, had some coffee, and left. I thought I would receive at least some closure, but nope. Ever since the day that happened, I was blocked on every single social media. I was honestly dumbfounded, but also knew I had enough of him and his inability to commit. So I just decided, F it. I'm done, and just moved on with my life. But hey, I would be wrong if I didn't say it took me a while to get over him, because after all, he was my first love, even if he didn't reciprocate the feeling. But like they say, time heals, and after about a year, I was able to slowly get over him. That is around the time I also met my now boyfriend, Jackson. So currently, after about 3.5 years of dating, we recently moved in only to face this situation. You see, as we were planning to move in together, we decided to move cities because we needed some change and some thrill. So we moved to this small town where not a lot of people live, and for introverts like us, it is a good thing. So, as we are enjoying our life in this small town, one day out of nowhere, I hear the doorbell ring once, and after a minute, the door knocks a bit aggressively. This was immediately suspicious because, like I said, this is a small town and we practically know no one here. So, anyways, I open the door and I'm shocked to see this little girl standing with a bag and a note in her hand. She's asking me where her parents are even before I got the opportunity to ask her the question. I am immediately alerted, but looking at the paper in her left hand, I feel a bit relieved as it gave me some hope. Well, nope. That was far from the case. The paper wasn't just a single piece of paper either, it was a 5-page note. I knew I had no choice but to start reading, and as each paragraph progresses, I'm shocked. Like, it starts off by the writer asking me about my well being, then talks about my boyfriend and I, telling me how they've been looking at us for a while. This is when I get creeped out, but hey, this is just the beginning. As I continue to read, it is revealed to me that the letter is written by none other than Jamie and his wife. The rest of the letter talked about how they knew we moved into their neighborhood the moment we shifted, and how, although they were hesitant to approach us, they had left cookies on our porch a couple of times with a note welcoming us, which is true. Well, I'm already weirded out and not sure what to think as I continue to read, as they mentioned how they needed a break and were going on some religious tour to find themselves, and them requesting me to not tell their parents or anyone about this because they don't want to look like bad parents. The letter even mentioned how they weren't sure when they'd return. I was infuriated, but I knew I wasn't just going to let the innocent child out on the streets, so I let her in, gave her some snacks, and called the cops and my boyfriend. I'm waiting on them currently as I type this out. I'm absolutely conflicted, weirded out, and just out of words. It's like Jamie has become a disease in my life, who has returned after years, and it is something I do not want. What should I do here? Was I wrong for calling the cops? AITA? Any advice would be much appreciated. The cops came in soon after I posted this and filed a report. I also showed them the letter, which they took away with them, along with giving me a copy of it, since I forgot to mention. It consisted of a few pages of Lydia describing her daughter's diet. Well, thanks for that, Lydia. The cops also spoke to Jamie's daughter, who revealed that her name was Gianna. The cops advised me to call the child support services to file a report for child abandonment, and from there on, they will inform us about what to do regarding getting temporary custody of their daughter. That is what my next step will be, and I will be updating this post after. I called the Child Protection Services and informed them of everything that went down. Upon looking at the records, I was informed that this wasn't the first time Jamie and Lydia had done something like this. They suggested I try to contact Jamie's family first to see if they're willing to take in Gianna, and if not, it will be on us to keep her until the cops find them. Well, I first had to look them up on Facebook, and the only person I could find was Jamie's sister. I texted her explaining the entire situation before ending the text with my contact details. It was surprising that I got a response almost immediately after an hour, and she told me that she would call me once she was off of work, which she did. On the call, she explained to me how worried she was about Gianna because it had been well way beyond a couple of weeks that Jamie and his wife hadn't contacted them after his parents refused to give him any money. She explained to me how this was a common occurrence for Jamie. He's been like this since his college days, and that is why his parents had married him off, promising him a house if he did. Well, as it turns out, his wife turned out to be just like him, and the two sold out their house to fund their extremely unhealthy lifestyle. They would often leave Gianna outside their houses when they wanted to leave for one of their detox tours, and that is what caused both his parents and sister to move, not giving him their new addresses, which led to him finding me to dump his daughter on. His sister was extremely kind and offered to drive over to pick up Gianna. which I expected because it seemed like the poor girl, who was a pleasure to have at our place, was getting homesick due to the lack of attention from her family. Hi everyone, this will be my final update. I decided to wait for a month before I did post this because I didn't want this post flooded with updates of minor things that took place. Thus, I have compiled everything in a post that is all that happened. The cops found Lydia and Jamie a couple of states away in a rave party, high out of their minds. They were charged with child abandonment and are going to face some sort of jail time and fine. They have also lost custody of their daughter, who now lives with her aunt. I often go visit her with my boyfriend ever since the situation happened, and it's a pleasure to know that I could at least have a little friend out of this situation. I know even now that the situation is resolved. I will keep in contact with these people, especially Gianna. As for my boyfriend and I, we're either thinking about moving houses or once again moving cities because after this exchange, we feel pretty unsafe to live here. And lastly, thank you all for helping me deal with the situation. Reading all of your responses definitely helped me understand that I wasn't alone. NTA, why would you not call the cops? Do you know how dangerous that is? Not just for you, but also Gianna? Please don't listen to what that letter says. If these people have the guts to leave their daughter in the middle of nowhere, then they definitely can spew a bunch of BS. Just do as you have planned. NTA, calling the cops was the best thing you could do. In my opinion, this was the best way you could have dealt with the situation because I know for a fact some people might have just left the little girl on the street. I own my house and my roommate rents my other room. His room is in the basement that has a bedroom, a den, and a bathroom. The only shared space we really have is the kitchen and yard. I don't have a problem with him having friends or company over, but when he moved in, I did make it clear to him that guests weren't allowed to stay long enough to be considered a resident because I only want one other person living in my house. That's all I can really handle. Usually there's no issue between us over the kitchen since we both clean up after ourselves. The problem is his girlfriend. He's been with her a few months now, and since she started coming over, she leaves the kitchen a wreck whenever she uses it. Twice now she's gotten milk at some point in the night and left the container on the counter. When they cook together, he cleans up and there's no issue. When she makes something for herself, she doesn't clean up. I'll go into the kitchen and there will be knives and cutting boards out, crumbs and bits of vegetables or cheese on the counter, dishes piled in the sink. I can live with the dishes not being taken care of right away, but at least clean up the crap left behind in case I need to use the kitchen after her. I've talked to him about this a few times already, and he said he'll talk to her. Whether he has or not, nothing has changed. The other day he got called into work on his day off and left about 2 hours before I had to go. I let her know when I'd be leaving so she could leave before then so I would lock up. Come out of my room and the kitchen is yet again wrecked. And she was already gone. Left half a plate of food on the counter, eggshells, raw bacon on the counter, shit on the stove. I took pictures of it all, cleaned it up quickly, and went to work. I shot my roomie a message we needed to talk when we were both home. Got home, showed him the pictures and told him what happened and told him I was done with the mess. I told him she could still come over, but she wasn't allowed to use the kitchen anymore unless they were cooking together, since that's the only time there isn't a mess after her. He asked me, what about if she gets hungry while visiting and he's not, and I told him that's not my problem. He can cook with her and she can bring something from her place or she can order something or go out, but I was done having the same conversation over and over about the same subject. He agreed to it, but has been making offhand comments the last couple of days about me treating her unfairly since I now won't let her use the kitchen in addition to not wanting her to have a key. AITA for not letting her use the kitchen? NTA, you already complained to your roommate and his girlfriend still isn't respecting your house rules. You laid out that you only want one person to live with you. And since you're the homeowner, you decide who uses your kitchen and who gets a key. NTA, but you're looking at this the wrong way. The girlfriend is your roommate's guest. Any mess she leaves is his mess. If she doesn't tidy it, then he has to. Don't treat this as a problem with the guest. Treat it as a problem with the roommate. Every crappy thing she does is his problem to fix. Every mess is his to clean if he doesn't, etc. If your roommate had a party and the place was a state, would you look to blame the individuals involved for each piece of mess or the roommate? You'd blame the roommate. Your agreement is solely with the roommate, so you don't need to single out the roommate's guests, girlfriend or not, just that the roommate isn't keeping up with their side of things. I am the oldest of 3 kids. I was 4 when my parents had my twin sisters, who were both born disabled. The first 18 months of their lives, they were in the hospital, and during that time, I spent a lot of time with other people. Then, when they came home, nothing had really changed. They required so much attention that I was easily forgotten, brushed aside. Things ended up getting toxic once I started making food for myself and other stuff, because then my parents would expect me to do it for them too. And I felt like they should be doing it for me and not the other way around. Take into account that I was 6, 7 years old when I started doing this stuff on my own. We fought a lot, and generally, life at home was not the best. They never showed up for me. When I was 10, I was given an award at school. Neither came. When I was 14 and played basketball and had a big game, neither showed up. When I graduated high school, even after jumping through the hoops they wanted me to jump through, by making the school place them in the wheelchair accessible area so my sisters could come, they didn't show up. They didn't show up for my engagement party or wedding party. I think the wedding was the final straw for me. They would always ask for my help or try and get me more involved with my sisters, but I felt like I was treated more like a nurse than their daughter. Did I try to talk to them? Yes. The conversation never actually happened because they always ignored me, so I gave up trying. I had very little contact with them. I had my daughter last year, and I am so thankful for my in-laws. They are everything I could have ever wanted for my daughter. They are everything I could not give her. They are so kind, and not just to her, but I truly feel like they care about me. A couple of weeks ago, I saw some people post thanks to the grandparents in their kids' lives, and so I made one about my in-laws and how I was so glad for my daughter. My parents saw it, as did people they know, and they asked them questions about why they weren't included and were they not involved in their only grandchild's life. They called me up and told me I was faultless to put that up, and did I not consider how they would feel seeing it and how they would be dodging questions about it? I told them I really didn't care. That as far as I'm concerned, they're not my daughter's grandparents anyway, so why would I consider them at all? They said I was cruel because I am the only one of their children who can give them grandkids. I laughed and told them I didn't realize I was their kid. I figured I was the unpaid nurse they wanted around sometimes so they could get a break. They told me I should have had more decency and to think of them, given they are full-time carers to 2 very disabled children, and they are doing their best. I said they were doing their best for them, but never for me. They told me I was spiteful to put that post up there, and they ended the call very clearly angry. AITA? NTA. Funny how they only started caring when their indifference to their own daughter and only grandchild became